the British Blues Stars. You said they lasted how long? How long was that? A couple years?
More, probably 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 years?
Yes. Because we didn't play that many dates. We needed a festival to
really make it come together.
Airfares,
right, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we did what we could.
Mm-hmm.
And what else were we doing? Well, I mean, all through the 80s and 90s, I had been playing with the Deluxe Blues Band with Danny Adler.
Right, and that's one of the times I met you over in Helsinki. Yeah.
It was Danny and
Bob Bruning
and Mickey Waller.
Right, on drums.
Who was very strange. And
the yardstick of the yardstick of weird.
Yardstick of weird. But Mickey was extraordinarily bright.
Yeah.
He was a fabulous drummer. He was just kind of weird.
Yeah, he was on the original Jeff Beck album, I think.
Yes, and
he was in that band.
Yeah. He was in Small Faces. I think it was Small Faces.
Was he in Small Faces?
I
didn't
guessing,
know that.
I'm guessing.
You may be right. Yeah, because Ron Wood was in.
He was certainly on
that band at the same
He was
time.
certainly on a lot of Rod Stewart's stuff.
Right.
And he had an argument with Rod Stewart's management about being paid. And when they wouldn't pay him, Mickey went to law school and got a law degree and sued them.
Whoa!
And he won.
Unbelievable.
I mean, that's
serious.
That's how bright he was.
That's serious.
Yeah.
Whoa!
That is how bright he was. A very, very clever
They
man.
didn't know who they were messing with,
No,
did
but
they?
he was extremely weird. Yeah.
That's a great story.
So that was a strange band.
Yeah, and then you had Dick Hextall Smith,
who was
right?
very eccentric. and
Could have come up with some different titles for that band.
Right. And then Bob Running and Danny Adler was the guitar player.
Yeah. And that was together for a while, as I recall.
We did a lot of recording and a lot
through
of
through the 90s, I think.
Yeah, we did, and it was quite satisfying. There's a lot of bootleg material of that band around, and some of it's I'm quite pleased with. You know how it is when people say, "Is that you on this record?" And you listen to think if it's any good, you go, "Yeah."
If it's not, you go, no.
Well, most of these I'll go.
Good answer. Yeah.
Most of these I'll go. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, who sang in that band?
Well, Danny Adler did.
Danny did? That's right.
I think he was the only singer in the band.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think I remember that.
Actually, Charlie Watts did play with the Deluxe briefly.
Did he really?
Yeah, I think there's a Deluxe album with Charlie on it.
Now, didn't you play in the Bill Wyman? Did you play in the Bill Wyman?
No,
thing?
I never met Bill Wyman.
All right. Okay.
I mean, I met Charlie. I met Mick Jagger and Keith Richard briefly, because when Charlie and I had this big band, they used to come to the gigs.
Oh, cool!
And sit and look. We'd have a jam in the dressing room.
Oh, really?
That was kind of strange. I got to know something about publicity in the music business. We played a gig at Cook's Ferry Inn, which was in North London. It was a big, fashionable venue at the time, and I remember the end of the gig. It was a great gig. It was very good, and everybody packed up and went on their way. And I was one of the last to leave. In fact, I think I probably was the last to leave. And in the next morning, I opened the paper to find that Mick and Keith had come to the club and caused a fight and a ruckus and had to be thrown out, and the police called.
Wow.
I'm going,
was this just BS?
No, I was there.
Yeah.
They left before me.
So it never happened.
It never happened.
That's so weird, man.
And I can remember talking to Ian Stewart on the phone and saying, they made this stuff up. Ian.
That's incredible.
And he said, yeah, they do it every day. I said, well, don't you complain about it? He said, well, it's fed up with, what's the point?
This is not worth, it's not worth even getting into it. Yeah,
But
God.
she just makes you think. What you read in the papers,
right, doesn't mean much.
No,
no.
They will make
Well,
it up.
the one I'm seeing in Facebook is unknown blues singer beats Beyonce and Taylor Swift. Did you see that? Bonnie Raitt, unknown blues singer.
Oh,
yeah, that's in the UK papers.
I would have loved to play with Bonnie Raitt.
Yeah,
she was. Bonnie Raitt and Joanne Kelly were kind of rivals.
Were they really?
At the time.
Yeah.
At the time, I mean, Joanne had a contract with CBS,
right?
I think, and was.
I think Bonnie was with Warner's or something.
Something like that, yes. But I mean, Bonnie was. I guess I don't know. I didn't know very well. I knew her manager, Dick Waterman, at the time.
I know Waterman
vaguely.
Yeah.
And Dick promised me next time Bonnie's in town, you can play piano. Of course, it never happened.
Never happened. Yeah.
But Joanne was not easy to deal with.
Really?
Well, she didn't really want the stardom. She just
Well, that's kind of like Peter Green. We were talking about.
She just so a lot of the bullshit that goes with.
Yeah.
She didn't care for.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So she didn't get on with the money people terribly well,
right?
Which was sad because she had a huge talent. But if you're not prepared to do it their way, it's they find someone who will.
And she went back to what, mid-60s? Was she around in the mid-60s?
Joe, even earlier. Joe, one of her earliest gigs was a residency she and I had at a pub in Croydon, South London.
Right.
This would be, I don't know, very early 60s. And we were the interval between the jazz bands.
Really?
Yeah, we did our interval slot and Joe played her, Charlie Patton and
that's so heavy,
stuff. And I played along with her.
Right.
And then they'd have Dixieland bands either side.
Huh.
And I remember they paid us 25 shillings in old money for this. And after some time, I said to the promoter, look, we've got, by the time I've driven from where I live, picked up Joe, gone to the gig, taken her back, gone home again, I've spent 25 shillings in gas. I had an old car,
That's
only
incredible,
50 miles to the gallon.
Yeah.
And I said, could you make it 30 shillings? And he sacked us.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Club owner empathy, right?
That's right. Yeah. He sacked us.
Jeez. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
So, your newest venture seems to be Little Jimmy Reed.
Yes, I met Little Jimmy in Scotland. About 12 years ago now. And I never thought that I'd play with another American blues band because they were all dead.
Yeah.
I played with Wolf and Hooker and Walter and Chuck Berry and, everybody, Lowell, Fulsom, all my heroes I played with. And they were all dead.
Yeah.
And I didn't think, in fact, I wasn't even going to go and see him. The festival promoter said, you want to see this guy? He's good. And I can remember to this day standing at the back of the room and listening to this sound and the hairs on the back of my neck. What? He's the real deal.
Yeah.
And we got chatting, and I said to him, I think you could do well in Britain. He was completely unknown, but it was unknown to me as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And I said, I'll see what I can do. So I phoned all the music agents that I knew, not that many, but I phoned everybody I knew, and they all said no.
Wow.
Absolutely not. And one of them said, no, he's too old school. And that really...
that puts you on a mission.
Yes. What do you mean old school?
Yeah.
That's the way it's supposed to
That's
sound.
right. That's what blues is.
So I got back to Jimmy and said, look, I'll try and get you a few gigs. I don't know whether I'll succeed or not, but I'll try. And we organised a tour, and it went well. And every year I'd organise 1 or 2 more tours for him. We used to do 15 days, something like that. A lot of clubs, the occasional festival if I could get one, and things like that. And gradually Jimmy acquired a reputation. He's audiences like him. He connects with all. He never speaks to them,
right,
unless I prod him into saying something. But he
exudes something.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
He does connect with them.
Yeah.
And he plays the real deal.
Right.
I didn't realise quite why. And what seems to have happened, I mean, Jimmy's not easy to draw out his life history, but what seems to have happened was that Jimmy played music, and he's also a qualified hairdresser.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
He's qualified to teach hairdressing. I mean,
Incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, Jimmy's, he's a very literate man.
Rod Piazza was actually a hairdresser.
Oh, I
too.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. What do you know?
Yeah.
So I've lost the thread.
Oh, so in other words, you met him and you guys connected.
Yeah, and I did try and get him some gigs, and gradually we managed to get off the sort of club circuit and into this little theatre circuit.
Right.
And that's worked very well for us over the years. So now I will try and find a festival, or at least some gig that will pay the airfare.
Pay the freight. Yeah.
For sure.
Right.
And then I'll put together a tour of weeks or so, art centres and theatres, and Jimmy just comes over and plays those.
So it's mainly the UK.
Mainly the UK.
Yeah.
He used to play more in Europe, but it seems to be harder and harder to get gigs in Europe.
It does. Yeah.
The pay money. The UK pays better because it's theatres, and there doesn't seem to be the same sort of theatre circuit in Europe. Or if there is, I'm not part of it, and I don't know how to.
Interesting.
Get
Well, it's always seemed to me that the UK is almost like a separate entity from the rest of Europe, and a lot of UK guys don't even play in the UK, and they end up playing in Europe, or vice versa.
Yes. It's like the
it's
blues.
Interesting.
Yeah, the blues band mostly played in the UK. They did do festivals and things elsewhere, but I mean, really, 90% or more of their gigs were in the UK.
Yeah, it's interesting how there's that separation.
Yeah, it just depends where you can manage to find an audience.
Right.
And Jimmy has found this audience, and as long as he can do it, and I think they'll come and see him play.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, he's an inspiration to me because he's got more energy than I have, and he's older than I am.
Yeah, right.
And he loves to play.
Now, what was his? Didn't you say he was in the service or something?
Yes. Oh, that was what I was going to say. He, up until the age of 35, he's working these 2 jobs. He's got 8 children. He's acquired 2 wives. 1 divorced, obviously. But he's supporting all these people, and he can't do it. It's just not enough money in it. So he joined the army, because 35 is the oldest you can join the army. So he joined the army and straight away volunteered to be in personnel. He's lived all over the world. So he did his 20-year stretch. But when he left, thought about taking up music again. And of course, what does he do? He plays the music that he played 20 years earlier. Right. So he's a kind of a throwback.
Right.
And there's part of Jimmy that would like to be contemporary. What I tell him is that the people actually, what they really want to hear is that sound.
Right.
It may not be a contemporary.
The old school sound, yeah.
It's an old school sound. But that's where you can, there are lots of people who can play contemporary blues, they don't do what you do.
No,
You know,
there's almost nobody that does
do
that
what you
anymore.
do,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you can't go wrong. And
Yeah.
he's so far,
yeah.
touch wood. He's
That's
doing great.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's us. I mean, we aren't. We used to do. I used to have a full-time job, and I'd still do 70 or 80 gigs a year.
right.
But we've cut it right down.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
we've retired.
Yeah.
You know, I'll be. Well, I was 80 last year.
But you're still playing.
Well, what else would I do?
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah,
You've got to
yeah.
do.
That's
you've
the
got
beauty of music, I think.
It
you
is.
know.
I mean, it's in a way, it's
80 is the new 70.
yeah, and in a way, it's one of the few professions. You know, if you're a footballer or
Right.
something, you can't go on
No,
doing it.
you can't.
But if you're a musician and your fingers don't give up
Yep.
on you,
That's
then,
right.
hey, you can go on doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned Eric Clapton,
Mm-hmm.
and of all the people in my generation of blues, I never played with Eric Clapton.
Mm-hmm.
I met him once
Mm-hmm.
in the Cow Palace in
Really?
San Francisco, backstage,
Huh.
and Dan Ford introduced me.
Right, right, right.
You know, Dan
I know
Ford,
Dan,
of
yeah.
guitar player.
Right.
And Bob, Eric, I would like you to meet my friend Bob Hall. And Eric goes, yeah, I've heard of him. And then he went away. So I know he's heard of me, but I don't know anything.
That's so weird.
And I wanted to have him in Rocket 88.
Mm-hmm.
And Stu wouldn't have it.
Really?
No. And Eric, I'm told, wanted to play with us.
Really?
And Stu wouldn't tell him where the gigs were.
How bizarre.
He said, no, he's too loud.
Well, could that have had something to do with Jack Bruce, though? Or was that before Jack Bruce?
Well, Jack Bruce was too loud as well.
Right.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
all the
maybe
time.
you don't think it had anything to do with that?
Well, it might have done,
Yeah,
but he
yeah.
certainly, and I,
That's interesting.
Stu, no, you don't want it. No, it's not right for that. And he wouldn't have it.
Wow.
He was rather determined.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you and Stu are pretty good friends, right?
We were good friends.
Ian
yeah.
Stewart is
He's
Rolling Stones
Rolling Stones.
alumni.
Well,
Yeah.
he was the original pianist.
The
in
original
Rolling Stones.
pianist, right?
And Andrew Oldham sacked him because he didn't have the right look.
Right.
And that's
Right.
that's true enough.
Right.
Stu never looked like a
Right.
rock and roll
Never-
star.
He was older, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
But he stayed with the Stones because he was a good organizer. He was their roadie, their road manager.
Right.
He ran their office.
Right.
And in time, he also ran the mobile studio.
Well, I like what you said about that he was one of the few people around them that would give them an honest opinion.
Yes, Stu. That was a great thing about Stu. He would. I was telling you, that they'd go out, come off stage, and the audience are going berserk.
You're right.
And they'd say, "How was it, Stu?" And he'd say, "You were better last night." Which he told it like it was.
Right.
You know.
Right. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. They seem to think a lot of him.
Well, I when he died, I wondered whether the band would carry on because he was so much integrally part of the whole thing. And he did play with them. We had my son and I had tickets for Wembley one year when they were doing a show, which was great.
Yeah.
There were some Stones songs that Stu didn't like, the psychedelic ones and things like this.
Right.
He's a boogie woogie pianist.
Right.
And he
Right.
didn't like it.
Right.
And every time they'd play one of these songs, he'd get up and leave the stage.
Would he be on stage playing?
Well, he'd be on stage playing
The other songs,
but
right,
anything he
right.
didn't like, he'd
Yeah.
get up and leave.
Uh-huh.
And they had a band meeting. Apparently, Charlie told me at a band meeting, and they said, "Stu, if you don't stay on the stage and play, we won't pay you."
Mm-hmm.
And next night, they go, and they play a psychedelic song. And Charlie said, "I look round."
He's gone.
He did.
That's great.
Yeah.
He's definitely a man of his convictions.
Absolutely,
pretty
he was a
much,
man
yeah.
of conviction. He was.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well, Charlie Watts seemed like a great guy too.
Yeah,
He really did.
I'll give you a Charlie story. He, I mean, Charlie wore his fame very, very lightly.
Yeah.
You know, he never thought he was a very good drummer, which actually was crazy because he was
crazy,
a world-class drummer.
Yeah.
And he didn't think anything much of the trappings of
Fame.
Yeah. We're in the band bus going to a gig with Rocket 88, and the two guys are talking about getting a new car, George Green and one of the horn players, you know, they're discussing the various merits of different cars.
Right.
And Charlie pops up in the front and said, George, whatever you do, he says, don't get a Ferrari. And George said, oh, why is that? And Charlie said, well, he said, I just took the Ferrari to the garage and they charged me £600 to clean it.
Jeez.
So I won't get one of those.
Yeah, that's great. Well, the other thing I wanted to just get with you on is like how you got into such a wide selection of styles of the old blues guys. I mean, because I know you're one of the few guys in England that really plays, learned Big Maceo or Walter Davis or, obviously the boogie woogie guys like Albert Ammons and people like that.
I put that down to a lock-up shop in Streatham called the Swing Shop. The Swing Shop had was a jazz record store, much smaller than this room, much smaller. You could only get 4 or 5 people in there, and it was run by a fellow called Dave Carey, who was a vibraphone player and drummer, and he oftentimes wasn't there, and he had an assistant called Len who was a bass player and would let us play any records we wanted. At that time, you couldn't just go into a shop and buy American blues records. There was some sort of tax problems or something like that, but anyway, you couldn't do it. And Dave Carey found a way around this. He had to order 100 records at a time. He could designate 80 of them, and the other 20, the dealer in the States would choose. So Dave would put in his 80 modern jazz quartet, John Coltrane stuff.
Right.
And the dealer would go to the cheapo drugstore records, and he'd put in modern and the really cheap ones. Yeah. So Dave would, when these records arrived, he'd go, gather old rubbish, and he'd throw it out in the bins. So, I mean, if you look, I've got a whole set of B.B. King's, Johnny Hooker's.
Right.
I've got the Howlin' Wolf on Crown.
Yeah.
That was the
Crown
records. Dave did realise that there was a market for old blues reissues. We kind of used the Swing Shop as a library. We would take them home and take them and then take them back.
Right.
And as long as Kerry wasn't there, that was okay. They could put it back in the rack.
Right.
That was my education in old blues, and also I got to know a collector called Francis Wilford Smith. He had an extraordinary collection of rare and valuable 78 records. Wow. And I got to know him. He was an artist by profession, in fact, mostly a cartoonist. And for many years he had an exclusive contract with Playboy.
Wow. 1
cartoon a month for Playboy.
Too
he
much.
was not allowed to do anything for anybody else. So he lived quite well, and he spent his money on records and rare books and things. So I learned a lot about particularly piano blues, which was what he was mostly interested in.
What would you say are your favorites of the piano, the 30s and 40s?
I can always listen to Jimmy Yancey, particularly late at night, when you can't beat Jimmy Yancey for late night listening. I actually quite like Leroy Carl, even though he's a very simple.
Oh yeah,
he was a great composer.
He was a great composer.
Absolutely. I like listening to his compositions. So
his songs really kind of became the kind of basis for a lot of the later blues singers.
and I like some of the
Yeah.
modern people. Sonny Thompson, I like.
Oh, okay, yeah. Played with
So
Freddie King.
50s,
Yeah.
50s.
Yeah.
Particularly, like, he has a tune called "Screaming Boogie," which I would love to be able to play, but I'm not good enough. And I found him. There was an article in one of the kind of gutter press about teenagers and drugs, and it said it had a photograph of some rather ordinary looking kids dancing, and it said drug crazed teenagers dancing to the latest New York craze, The Fish. So I thought, I want that record, and I found it.
That's great.
Sonny Thompson.
That's great. Yeah, I don't think I've heard that one.
I can play it for you.
Okay.
I've got it here.
Well, let's play something. I want you to come on, baby. Come on and take a walk with me. I want you to come on, baby. Come on and take a walk with me. You know I won't let nothing bother you if you just be my little honeybee. I will make you honey in the morning. I will make you honey all through the night. I will make you honey in the morning. I will make you honey all through the night. I will make you honey 3 times a day. Little girl, if you just treat your daddy right. We'll take a walk out in the park. Little girl, I wanna sit in some shady tree. Take a walk out in the park. Little girl, I wanna sit in some shady tree. I won't let nothing bother you. Little girl, if you just be my little honeybee. Oh, let me hear you, Bob. Sweet things. Little girl, I will be your little honeybee. I want you to call me daddy. Little girl, I will be your little honeybee. If you just be my little girl, I will make you honey all through the night.